I watched my wife walk out the door to chase a man who wasn't me, and when he left her, she expected to come back. But by then, everything had changed. You know, there's a strange kind of comfort in routine. You wake up, head to work, come home to the familiar sound of your kids laughing, your wife in the kitchen, the same old rhythm every day. I used to think that routine was a blessing, that it meant stability, something solid I could count on. I truly believed I had everything a man could ask for. A steady job, 2 beautiful kids, Emma, 9, and Lucas, 5, and a wife, Amanda, who I'd shared the last 12 years of my life with. Sure, Amanda and I had our share of ups and downs. What marriage doesn't? But I always figured that's just part of the deal. We'd met back in college. I still remember the first time I saw her, confident, sharp, and driven in a way that pulled me right in. She had big dreams and the kind of energy that made people stop and listen. Over time, she climbed the ladder at her job, and for a while she was the one carrying us financially. That never bothered me. I was proud of her success. But in the past couple of years, something started to feel different. I tried to chalk it up to stress, work, parenting, the grind of everyday life. I wish that's all it had been. It started out small. Amanda was glued to her phone more than usual. Not just casual scrolling, she'd be smiling at the screen, and whenever I walked into the room, she'd quickly lock it or flip it over. I never considered myself the jealous type, so I pushed the doubts aside. Maybe she was venting to friends or trying to unwind. We all need an outlet, right? But then the late nights began. And not just staying at the office late, there were full-blown overnight business trips, all popping up without much notice. I'd be home alone with the kids, helping with homework, reading bedtime stories, tucking them in while offering up the same rehearsed lines. "Mommy's just working late again, sweetheart. She's trying to give us the best life she can." I'd say it with a smile, but inside I felt this slow, growing weight in my gut. And at the same time, her behavior started to overlap in a strange way with my cousin Ryan's best friend, Chris, being around more often. Ryan would say, "Chris is just in town helping me out with a few things." At the time, I didn't think much of it. Just coincidence, I told myself. But in hindsight, it wasn't random at all. The puzzle pieces were already scattered right in front of me, I just hadn't started putting them together yet. The space between Amanda and me grew quickly. And it wasn't just about the conversations fading. It was the way she stopped touching my arm when she laughed, the way she avoided eye contact, the way she seemed to physically shrink away when I reached out to her. We went from sharing inside jokes and late-night talks to barely speaking at all. I'd ask her how her day had gone, and she'd offer a tired, "It was fine," while thumbing through her phone. Every so often, she'd chuckle at something, and when I asked about it, she'd just mumble, "Oh, just work stuff." But work stuff didn't explain why she wasn't home most weekends anymore. Her excuses started to sound more rehearsed. "I'm meeting with a client," or "They've asked me to stay and oversee a major rollout." And at first I bought it. I wanted to believe her. I mean, we had built a life together, 2 kids, a mortgage, 12 years of shared memories. Who walks away from that? But the doubt kept growing. Some nights, after I'd tucked the kids into bed and the house had gone quiet, I'd sit in the living room, staring at the clock. Midnight would roll around and still no text, no call. I'd lie there in bed, wide awake, my mind racing. I wanted to fix things. I wanted to talk to her. But every time I tried, she'd snap. "Why are you always interrogating me?" she'd say. "I'm working my butt off for this family, and you don't even trust me?" It hit me hard every time. I didn't know how to respond. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe she really was under a lot of pressure. But that gut feeling? It was only getting worse. And Chris, he just kept showing up. He was always hanging around Ryan, especially when Amanda was on one of her trips. They'd joke around, make weekend plans, and Chris had this habit of always asking me how Amanda was doing. "Man, Amanda's got a lot on her plate, huh?" he'd say, grinning in a way that didn't sit right with me. At the time, I shrugged it off. He was just being friendly, right? He was practically family. But it started to feel off. Like he knew something I didn't. One evening, after putting the kids to bed, I sat on the couch in silence. My chest was tight, and that old knot in my stomach had twisted itself into something I couldn't ignore anymore. I picked up my phone and scrolled through our texts. They looked normal, too normal. No warmth, no spark, just logistics. I clicked over to her social media. And that's when it really hit me. Nothing about our family. No recent pictures of us. Just generic posts from girls' nights out, and even those faces were people I didn't recognize. And right there, beneath every single one, was a like from Chris. I tried to shake it off. Maybe he was just being supportive. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it meant something more. The next day I decided to talk to Ryan. If anyone would have noticed something off, it'd be him. We've always been close like brothers. Still, I felt uneasy bringing it up. I didn't want to sound crazy or like I was accusing anyone. Over a couple beers at our usual bar, I tried to sound casual. Amanda's been tied up with work a lot lately, I said, watching his face. And Chris has been around pretty often, huh? How's he been doing these days? Jason gave a half-hearted shrug. Yeah man, he's been keeping busy too. But you know Chris, he always makes time for what matters. The way he said it? I don't know. There was something in his eyes, like a flicker of something unspoken. Made my stomach twist. I opened my mouth to ask more, maybe dig a little deeper, but before I could, he shifted gears and started talking about stress at work, completely derailing the conversation. That night, sleep was impossible. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying every interaction in my mind like a film stuck on a loop. Amanda's constant late nights, Chris suddenly being everywhere, and now Jason's weird response. It felt like there was a secret being passed around and somehow I was the last to know. The next morning, Amanda left early again for another one of those urgent meetings. I stood alone in the kitchen, nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee, and for the first time it really hit me, I didn't even know where she was going. Not really. I just accepted what she told me like clockwork. That realization clung to me all day. The uneasiness had grown into something I couldn't shake. Every quiet moment, every buzz of my phone, every second she was away, it all screamed at me. I couldn't keep brushing it aside. A few days later, after another one of her vague stories about having to stay late for some project, I decided I couldn't live in the dark anymore. I had to face the truth, whatever it was. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was all in my head. But I couldn't go on like this, not knowing. That evening, while Amanda was in the shower, I did something I never thought I'd do. I picked up her phone. My hands trembled. My heart felt like it was going to burst through my chest. I didn't want to be that guy, the one who snoops. But I had reached my breaking point. I needed answers. And what I found? Nothing. No strange texts, no weird apps. Just the usual, work messages, group chats with moms from school, even some from me. But it was too clean. It didn't make sense. There was no trace of anything remotely out of place. No conversations with Jason, nothing about Chris. It was like a whole part of her life had been wiped away. I sat there with her phone in my hand, feeling sick. I hated what I'd done. But at the same time, the emptiness of it only confirmed what I feared. She was hiding something. Carefully. And then, just a few mornings later, I got the proof I wasn't even looking for. Amanda had left her laptop open on the kitchen counter while she got the kids ready for school. I was passing by when a message notification popped up from someone saved simply as J. The text read, "Can't wait to see you tonight. Same place." I froze. My first thought was that it might be Jason. Maybe they were planning something innocent. But I had to know. I clicked open the conversation. It wasn't Jason. It was Chris. "I missed you last night. Counting down the hours till we can be together again." The blood drained from my face. My hands were shaking. It felt like I was watching my world fall apart in real time. I snapped pictures of the text with my phone, heart pounding in my ears. I didn't want to believe it, but there it was in black and white. She wasn't working late. She was with him. I couldn't confront her, not then. Not with the kids running around, unaware of the storm about to hit. I had to stay calm. I needed to be smart. The days that followed were a blur. Everything felt like it wasn't real, like I was watching my life through someone else's eyes. This was Chris, my cousin's best friend, someone who'd sat at our dinner table, joked with my kids, smiled in our family pictures. And he'd been sneaking around with Amanda. Behind my back. In my own home. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew I couldn't lose control. I couldn't let the kids see me break down. That weekend, Amanda mentioned another work event. I nodded like usual and told her I'd be home with the kids. She didn't even look up from her phone. That was another thing I couldn't ignore anymore, how detached she'd become. I felt invisible, like a ghost she was too busy to acknowledge. Saturday came and I watched her get ready. She looked incredible, too incredible for a business meeting. There was a sparkle in her eye that hadn't been there in months, maybe years. But it wasn't for me. As soon as she walked out the door, I picked up the phone and called Ryan. We hadn't spoken much lately, but I needed to talk to someone. I needed to know if he had any clue what his best friend had been up to. "Hey man," I said, trying to sound laid back, though my voice was tight. "You doing anything tonight?" "Not really. Just taking it easy," he replied. "What's up?" I paused, trying to find the right words. "Amanda's out again. Another work thing. Figured maybe we could grab a beer, catch up." There was a beat of silence. "Another one, huh?" Ryan said. She's been doing a lot of that lately. His voice was different. Hesitant, almost. And then, without me even pushing, he added something that made my blood run cold. You know, Chris mentioned he had plans tonight too. Said he was heading out. Kinda weird, huh? That they both seemed to have things going on at the same time. My stomach dropped. Jason probably didn't even realize it, but with just a few casual words, he confirmed what I'd been dreading all along. My worst fear wasn't just in my head anymore, it was standing there, real, undeniable. Still, I played it cool. Yeah, weird, I mumbled, trying to hide the shake in my voice. Maybe we'll catch up another time. I hung up the phone, but the weight in my chest didn't go anywhere. In fact, it got heavier. The picture was coming together now. Amanda had lied again, and chances were she wasn't at any meeting. She was probably with Chris. Right then, as I sat there, something in me shifted. I'd been quiet for too long, too trusting. That night, I called a babysitter and made a decision. I couldn't just sit on the sidelines anymore. I needed to see it with my own eyes. The drive was quiet, but not peaceful. My hands gripped the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. I wasn't sure what I'd do when I got there. Part of me hoped I was wrong. Part of me prayed I'd pull up and see nothing. But I knew better. I already knew where they were, thanks to their little trail of carelessness. And I wasn't going to ignore it anymore. They weren't meeting at a hotel or some fancy place. No, they thought they were being smart, choosing a quiet little bar just outside of town. One of those places where nobody asks questions, where you can disappear into a dark booth and pretend you're someone else. I parked down the street and sat there for a moment, staring at the front entrance. My chest felt tight, like my ribs were trying to hold in all the emotion that was ready to spill over. I almost turned around. I almost went home. But I couldn't. Not this time. When I walked in, the place was dim and low-key. A few people scattered around, soft music playing, laughter in the background. Then, in the corner booth, I saw them. Amanda. And Chris. They were sitting close, sharing quiet laughs, leaning into each other like it was the most natural thing in the world. Her hand rested on the table near his, their knees nearly touching. They looked comfortable. Too comfortable. I stood there, frozen, just watching them. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. This was the woman I'd built a home with, the mother of my children. And this guy, this man who had been around my family for years, he was sitting there like he belonged with her. I couldn't watch anymore. I walked straight to their table. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, but my voice came out calm, steadier than I felt. Amanda, I said. You want to explain what's going on? Her smile vanished instantly. Her whole body went stiff. Chris looked like he'd just seen a ghost, wide-eyed, panicked, suddenly unsure of what to do with his hands. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She glanced at him like he might jump in and save her, but he just stared down at the table, silent. I stood there, waiting, the silence stretching longer than I could bear. Finally, Amanda spoke, her voice soft and shaking. It's not what it looks like. I almost laughed. Not what it looks like. I had the messages. I had everything. And now here they were, meeting in secret. Acting like a couple. Don't lie to me, I said louder now. I've seen the messages. I know what's been going on. How long, Amanda? How long have you been lying to me? Tears welled up in her eyes, but I couldn't tell if it was regret or just shame from being caught. She stammered, It wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I clenched my fists at my sides. Didn't mean for it to go this far? You've been lying to me for months. You've made me feel crazy, made me doubt myself while you were out here doing this. What about our kids? Our family? Does that mean anything to you? Her tears started to fall, but I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for her. Not now. Then I turned to Chris. I didn't even want to look at him. You man. You sat in my house. You joked with my kids. And all the while, you were sneaking around with my wife. He looked up, guilt plain on his face. I don't know what to say. It just happened. I shook my head, disgusted. You're a coward. The silence that followed felt endless. Heavy. Suffocating. This wasn't some mistake. This was betrayal. Plain and simple. Turning back to Amanda, my voice cracked as I asked, So what now? Is this it? Are you choosing him? She didn't answer right away. She just sat there, silent, while Chris looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. But I needed to hear her say it. I needed to know if she was really going to throw away everything we'd built. Is this what you want, Amanda? I asked again. You're really willing to give up our family, for this? Her lips parted like she was going to speak, but nothing came out. She looked lost, like she was suddenly realizing what she had done. Chris shifted uncomfortably, staring at the table like maybe if he avoided my eyes long enough, this would all disappear. Finally, Amanda whispered, "I didn't plan any of this. I swear. It just happened, and I don't even know how to explain it." I stared at her, stunned. "You don't know how to explain it? You've been hiding this for months. You had a choice, Amanda. And you made it. You chose this." Her tears came fast now, thicker, more desperate, but they didn't stir anything in me anymore. Not even pity. I had spent months giving her the benefit of the doubt, covering for her, shielding our children from the truth. I was the one putting Emma and Lucas to bed every night, telling them their mom was working hard, when in reality, she was out with him. And now I had nothing left to give. "You're unbelievable," I said quietly, shaking my head in disbelief. "Does Ryan even know? Or have you been lying to him too, sneaking around behind his back like this?" Amanda said nothing. But finally Chris found his voice, low, guilty, weak. "He doesn't know, man. I swear." I turned toward him, fists clenched so tight I could feel my fingernails digging into my palms. "Well, he's about to." At that moment, I saw something shift in Amanda's expression. Her eyes widened as the reality hit her. This wasn't just a secret between us anymore. This was going to ripple out. Her face crumpled and she reached for me, desperate. "Please don't tell Ryan. Please. I never wanted it to go this far." I stepped back, avoiding her hand like it burned. The person sitting in front of me wasn't the Amanda I married. This wasn't the woman I had built a life with. She was someone else now, someone who had chosen deceit over honesty, fantasy over family. "It's too late," I said, voice flat. "You made your decisions. Now you get to live with them." She sagged, the weight of it all sinking into her shoulders. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't just about infidelity. This was about betrayal at every level, breaking trust, breaking our family, and doing it all without so much as a second thought. I stood there, silent for a beat, my heart pounding. My thoughts went straight to Emma and Lucas. They were probably fast asleep back home, completely unaware that everything was unraveling. And as much as it tore me up inside, I knew what I had to do. "You're going to explain this to the kids," I said, each word sharp and steady. "I'm done covering for you." Her face went pale and Chris looked like he wanted to melt into the booth. I didn't care anymore. This wasn't just on me, it was on both of them now. I turned and walked out of the bar without looking back. The cool night air hit me like a wave. My mind raced and the silence in my car felt like it might swallow me whole. I didn't know what I was going to say to Ryan. I didn't know how to break this to the kids. But what I did know was that I wasn't going to keep pretending. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked so normal from the outside. The porch light was on. The babysitter was still inside, sitting on the couch watching TV. For just a second, I wished I could walk in and pretend nothing had happened. But that life was gone now. I paid the sitter and walked quietly through the house, stopping at the kids' rooms. I stood in the doorway watching them sleep. Emma was curled up with her stuffed bear. Lucas was snoring softly. Their little faces looked so peaceful, so unaware of the storm heading their way. My heart ached. This wasn't their fault, but they were going to feel it all the same. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, replaying every conversation, every excuse Amanda had made. How had I missed it? How had I let this go on for so long? The next morning, I woke up knowing exactly what I needed to do. I couldn't let her betrayal define what came next. I still had 2 kids who needed me. They needed something to stay the same. And they needed the truth. Amanda came home the following day. She sent a text saying she needed space to think. Think about what? I wasn't sure. When she walked through the door, she looked wrecked, pale, hollow-eyed, like someone who just realized the price of what she'd done. "We need to talk," I said the moment she stepped in. She nodded slowly, barely audible. "I know." We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we used to sit every night as a family. We'd shared meals, stories, laughter at that table. But now it felt like a crime scene. "I'm going to tell the kids," I said. My tone left no room for discussion. "They deserve to know." Amanda's face twisted in panic. "No, please. They're too young. They won't understand." I shook my head. "They're smart. And they deserve better than to grow up in a house built on lies. I'm not going to be the one who hides this. Not for you." She opened her mouth to argue but stopped. She knew there was no winning this. The truth was already out. I took a breath, steeling myself for what I had to say next. "And you need to leave." Her head snapped up. "What?" "You heard me," I said. "I can't do this anymore. You chose him. You don't get to stay here and pretend everything's fine. This is my house now. I won't let you play the part of Mother of the Year under the same roof where you tore everything apart. She broke then, her body shaking with sobs, face buried in her hands. I just watched her, feeling nothing. Not anger. Not pity. Just finality. The Amanda I had loved, the one I believed in, the one I had trusted with everything, I realized she'd been gone for a long time. This woman crying in front of me? She was someone else. And whatever came next, I knew I'd be facing it without her. You'll need to figure something out, I said, pushing back from the table, standing tall even though I felt like crumbling inside. But you can't stay here anymore. Amanda's voice broke as she sobbed. I didn't want this. I never meant to hurt you. I never wanted to hurt the kids. I looked down at her, this broken version of someone I used to know, and I shook my head. But you did, I said, plain and quiet. There wasn't anything left to argue. Then I walked away. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel strong. I felt hollow. Like everything I'd ever worked for had just been reduced to rubble, and I was the one left sifting through the pieces. The hardest part wasn't confronting Amanda. It wasn't even seeing her and Chris together. The hardest part was what I still had ahead of me, sitting my kids down and breaking their hearts. That night, she stayed in the guest room. There was nothing left to say between us. I told her she needed to leave soon, and she didn't fight me on it. She knew. She knew the damage was done. But before anything else, the kids had to know. I couldn't keep sheltering them from the truth. Not anymore. The next morning, I was up before the sun, just sitting at the kitchen table, staring at old family photos on the wall, smiling faces at the beach, birthday candles, vacations, messy Christmas mornings. All those moments felt like a lie now. Or maybe just a memory that belonged to a life I no longer recognized. When Emma and Lucas came downstairs, still in their pajamas, sleepy-eyed and innocent, I felt the weight of what I was about to do settle in my chest like concrete. I had played this conversation out in my head over and over. But when they sat down across from me, none of those rehearsed lines came. Hey, I said, trying to sound calm, can you two sit with me for a minute? They shuffled over and sat down, completely unaware that the ground was about to shift beneath their feet. Emma, always the curious one, looked at me with those big eyes of hers. Lucas was busy spinning the wheels on his little toy truck. What's wrong, Daddy? She asked. I swallowed the lump in my throat. We need to talk. Something important, okay? They both looked at me, waiting. You know how Mommy's been really busy lately, I began slowly. Well, things between Mommy and me are going to be different now. A lot different. Emma furrowed her brow. Lucas just kept spinning that truck, not really getting it yet. Mommy made some choices, I continued, my voice tight, and those choices have really hurt our family. Emma tilted her head, her voice soft. What kind of choices? I looked down for a second, then back at them. Mommy has been spending time with someone else. Someone she shouldn't have. Because of that, we can't live together anymore. Emma's eyes filled instantly. What do you mean? Are you getting divorced? I nodded slowly, and that one word felt heavier than anything I'd ever spoken. Yeah, sweetie. We are. She burst into tears, and I reached out and pulled her into my arms. She cried into my chest, and it was like someone was squeezing my heart in their fist. Why? She asked, her voice cracking. Why is this happening? Can't you fix it? I held her tighter. I wish we could. But sometimes things get broken in a way that can't be fixed. This isn't your fault, Emma. It's not Lucas's fault either. This is between Mommy and me. Lucas tugged at my sleeve, looking up at me, confused. Is Mommy leaving? I nodded again, forcing the words out. Yeah, buddy. She'll be living somewhere else soon. He looked down at his toy, and I could tell he didn't really understand. Not yet. But he would. When she wasn't there at dinner. When she didn't tuck them in. It would hit him eventually. Emma pulled back and looked at me with tear-streaked cheeks. But we're still a family, right? Yes, I said, brushing her hair back gently. We're always a family. And I'm not going anywhere. I'm right here with you no matter what. They clung to me then, both of them. I let myself cry too. Not just for my marriage, but for the pain I couldn't protect them from. Later that morning, Amanda came downstairs. Her face was puffy, her eyes swollen. She looked at the kids and saw what I had told them written all over their faces. She didn't say much. She packed a bag quietly that afternoon, pausing every few minutes like maybe she'd say something, offer an explanation. But there were no words left that could fix this. She promised she'd be back to visit them soon. I nodded, but I didn't really believe her, not in the way she meant it. When she walked out the door, there was no dramatic goodbye. No long pause on the porch. Just the sound of it clicking shut behind her. And as I stood in that quiet house, looking around at the life we used to share, All I felt was a strange mix of relief and sorrow. Relief that I didn't have to live with the lies anymore. And sorrow for everything our kids had just lost. If there was one thing I knew, it was this: no matter what, I was going to be there for my kids. I'd pick up the pieces one at a time and rebuild something solid, something they could count on. The house felt different without Amanda. Not just quieter, but empty in a way that felt unnatural. The kind of silence that didn't bring peace, it pressed down on you. Those first few days after she left, I ran on autopilot. School drop-offs, homework, dinner, baths, bedtime stories. I did what needed to be done. But once the kids were asleep and the house went still, the weight of it all came crashing down. I'd sit alone in the living room, the same room where we once curled up on the couch after the kids went to bed, laughing over dumb TV shows or talking about our day, and I'd wonder how everything got so off track. I tried to trace it back, like if I could just find the exact moment where it all started to unravel, I could make sense of it. But it wasn't one moment. It was 1,000 small ones, quiet cracks that went unnoticed until everything finally gave way. Amanda didn't come back right away to see the kids. She sent a few texts trying to explain herself. She said she needed space. But I didn't reply. What was there to say? She had already made her choice. And now I had to figure out how to live with it, and how to protect our kids from the fallout. One night, after tucking Emma and Lucas into bed, I found myself scrolling through old photos. Smiling faces at the beach. Birthday cakes. Halloween costumes. For a second, I let myself believe those moments were real. Maybe they were. But now, all they felt like were snapshots of a life that had quietly been slipping away while I wasn't looking. The anger hadn't gone away. It would come in waves, short, sharp bursts of fury that were always followed by something heavier. Sadness. Regret. Loss. And sometimes I'd wonder if there was something I missed, something I could have done. But that never lasted long. Not when I remembered the lies. Not when I remembered Chris. Then came the call I'd been dreading. Jason finally reached out. Apparently, Amanda had contacted him. Tried to explain. Tried to salvage something. I knew it was only a matter of time. I don't even know what to say, man, Jason said, his voice low and tired. Nick. Amanda. I never saw this coming. Neither of us said much for a while. We didn't need to. The betrayal had hit us both. Different ways, same pain. I should have told you sooner, I said. I didn't know how. Jason let out a long breath. I get it. I've known Nick forever. Grew up with him. I thought he was like a brother. I still can't believe it. His voice cracked a little at the end. He sounded broken too. If there's anything I can do, he started, but I stopped him. You've done enough. You're still family. And we'll get through this. Somehow. We hung up, but the conversation lingered. Amanda's choices hadn't just shattered our marriage. They'd sent shockwaves through everything around us. Still, I couldn't let it consume me. Emma and Lucas needed me present, not lost in bitterness. So I started making changes. First, I packed up the reminders. Photos, keepsakes, wedding pictures. At first, it felt like I was erasing history. But piece by piece, I realized I was reclaiming the space. Making it ours, mine and the kids. Emma noticed. One day she asked why the photo of her mom and me was missing from the mantel. I knelt down and looked her in the eyes. Things are different now, I told her. But I still love you and your brother more than anything. That's never going to change. She nodded. Quietly. Thoughtfully. She understood more than I expected. Kids always do. Over the next few weeks, I built new routines. I took them to the park more, helped with every homework assignment, made pancakes on Saturdays. There were still hard nights, but we got through them. And with each day, I felt a little stronger, a little more like myself. Then one afternoon, life threw me a curve I hadn't expected. I was at the grocery store just grabbing snacks and juice boxes when I turned into the aisle and there she was, Emily. We'd dated briefly in college before life pulled us in different directions. She looked up and smiled just as surprised as I was. David? She said, her voice warm. Wow, it's been a long time. We stood there talking like old friends, catching up on everything life had thrown at us. She was single. No kids. Had just moved back into town to be closer to her family. Something about seeing her, someone who knew me from before all this pain, felt grounding. We ended up exchanging numbers. Nothing big. No pressure. Just a plan to grab coffee and catch up sometime. And as I walked out of that store, grocery bags in hand, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not because I thought I had everything figured out. Not because I was ready to fall in love again. But because, for the first time since Amanda walked out, I realized my story wasn't over. It had just taken a turn. And maybe, just maybe, that wasn't the end. Maybe it was the start of something better. For me. For Emma and Lucas. For whatever came next. Running into Emily had caught me off guard, in the best way possible. After months of feeling like my world had been split wide open, seeing her again felt like a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. I wasn't looking for anything serious, and truthfully, I didn't even know if I was ready to date again. But reconnecting with someone from a time in my life when things felt simple, when I was still figuring out who I wanted to be, it gave me something I hadn't felt in a long while. Oh. We met for coffee the next week. I'll be honest, I was nervous. It wasn't a date, not officially, but it was the first time I'd sat across from someone like that since everything with Amanda blew up. I didn't know how much to share or if I should even bring it up at all. But Emily had this calm about her, the kind of energy that doesn't demand anything from you. She stirred her coffee, looked at me with genuine warmth and said, "So, tell me what life's been like lately." I paused, thought about dancing around it, but I was tired of pretending. To be honest? I said, "It's been rough. My marriage ended. Amanda, she was unfaithful. We're getting divorced." There. Out in the open. I braced myself for awkwardness. But she didn't flinch. She didn't recoil. She just nodded and gently reached across the table to touch my hand. "I'm really sorry, David," she said softly. "That's a lot. I can't imagine what that's been like." And just like that, something softened in me. She didn't try to fix it. She didn't make it about her. She just sat with it, with me. We talked for hours and it wasn't heavy the whole time. We laughed too. Shared stories from college. Caught up on years gone by. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a man sifting through the ashes. I felt like someone still capable of building something. We kept it light in the weeks that followed. Walks in the park. Lunch here and there. Nothing rushed. Just two people learning each other again. But I knew something real was growing. And with that came a new challenge: how to talk to Emma and Lucas about it. They were still adjusting. Amanda had become more of a weekend presence, but even then it felt strained, like she didn't know how to show up anymore. Emma was old enough to feel the distance. She was carrying the weight of everything, angry in ways she didn't always know how to express. Lucas didn't understand fully, but he felt the shift. I didn't want to confuse them or make things harder. But I also didn't want to lie. So one evening after dinner, I sat them down. "I want to talk to you both about something," I said, my heart pounding a little. "You know how Daddy has a friend he's been spending time with?" Emma gave me a look, guarded, cautious. Lucas kept playing with his little truck. "Her name's Emily," I continued. "She's someone I knew a long time ago. We've been seeing each other lately. We're not rushing anything, but I wanted you to know." Emma's eyes narrowed. "Is she your girlfriend?" I hesitated. "Not officially. We're still figuring things out. But yes, I do like her." There was a pause. Then Emma's voice came, soft but sharp. "What about Mom?" I took a deep breath. "Your mom and we're not getting back together. I know that's hard. I wish things could have turned out differently. But that doesn't change how much I love you and your brother. That part stays the same." She looked down, quiet for a moment. "I just want things to go back to how they were." My chest tightened. I pulled her close. "I know. I do too. But even though things are different, we're still a family. I'm still your dad. I'll always be here." She nodded slowly. She didn't say much after that, but she didn't pull away either. Over the next few weeks, I kept things steady. Emily and I kept seeing each other, but I didn't bring her around the kids. They needed time. And Emily got that. She never pushed, never asked for more than I could give. And that made me trust her even more. Meanwhile, Amanda's visits grew more infrequent. The kids noticed. Emma stopped asking when her mom would call. Lucas barely mentioned her at all. And while that should have made me angry, mostly it just made me sad. She'd chosen distance. But I was choosing presence. I couldn't undo what had happened. But I could show my kids that I was here. That I wasn't going anywhere. That love, the real kind, doesn't vanish just because things fall apart. And slowly, life started to feel a little more normal. Not the same. Never the same. But steadier. Stronger. Hopeful. I didn't know where things with Emily would go. I wasn't planning too far ahead. But I knew this: I was healing. My kids were healing. And maybe, just maybe, something good was beginning to grow out of all the wreckage. The months rolled by, and slowly the wounds Amanda left behind began to scar over. Life still had its tough moments, but it was no longer defined by chaos or betrayal. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was living. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I could say I was genuinely happy. Emily had become a steady, calming presence in my life. She didn't just fill the empty spaces, she brought light into them. What started as a reconnection turned into something real. Something I never thought I'd find again. Amanda, on the other hand, had faded into the background. After leaving, her visits with the kids grew less and less frequent. Emma stopped asking about her. Lucas adjusted in his own quiet way, but even he noticed the missed weekends. At first I was furious. How could she walk away from them after everything she'd already done? But over time the anger turned into a kind of relief. Her absence meant less instability, less pain. And then she was just gone. No texts. No calls. Nothing. It was like she'd vanished. And truthfully, I didn't chase after her. I had spent enough time and energy on someone who had already chosen to walk away. Emily was there through all of it. She understood how delicate everything was. She never pushed, never rushed me to move faster than I could. And when I finally introduced her to Emma and Lucas, she met them with nothing but patience and kindness. Emma was cautious at first, guarded, still nursing the hurt her mom had left behind, but it didn't take long. Emily didn't force herself into their lives. She just showed up, consistently, gently, and over time the walls began to come down. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were becoming a family. Then, out of nowhere, I got a call from Ryan. His voice was tense, tight, with the kind of weight that makes your stomach drop before you even hear the words. "David," he said quietly. "It's Amanda. There's something you need to know." I braced myself. "What is it?" "She had a baby. A few weeks ago. It's Nick's." The world slowed for a second. I had suspected she might have been pregnant when she left, but hearing the truth, was like getting hit all over again. And yet, somehow I wasn't shocked. Not really. Not anymore. "She didn't tell anyone," Ryan continued. "Not even me until recently. I think she was planning to run off with him, but things didn't go how she expected." I clenched the phone, anger and disbelief bubbling up. "What happened?" "Nick left," he said. "She's staying with some friend of his now. She's miserable. And she knows about Emily. She's been asking about you." There was a long silence. I didn't know what to feel. Anger? Pity? Maybe both. "She's been telling people you moved on too fast," Ryan added. "That Emily's just a replacement." I let out a bitter laugh. "That sounds like Amanda. She left her family for a guy who turned out to be a coward, and now she can't stand that I've found happiness without her." Ryan sighed. "Don't let her pull you back into it, man. You deserve peace." "I know," I said. "And I'm not going back. Not now. Not ever." I hung up and sat with it for a while. Amanda had given birth to Nick's child. The man she had upended everything for had walked away, and now she was left holding the weight of her own choices. Meanwhile, I had rebuilt something solid. Something real. Rumors trickled in over the next few weeks. Amanda trying to get Nick back, failing. Her charm had faded fast when reality showed up. She wasn't coming home. She wasn't trying to. And honestly, that was fine. We didn't need her to. What I had now, with Emily, with the kids, wasn't a replacement. It was a fresh start. A new beginning, one built on trust, patience, and a kind of love I didn't know existed before all the heartbreak. One evening, Emily and I sat on the porch as the sun dipped low. Emma and Lucas were running across the yard, laughing, chasing each other like the past didn't have any power over them anymore. I turned to her, my voice soft. "I didn't think I'd find this again. Happiness. Peace." She smiled, her hand resting gently on mine. "You deserve it, David. All of you do." And I believed her. Amanda had tried to destroy everything we built. But in the end, the only thing she destroyed was her own place in our lives. I had moved forward, not just away from her, but towards something far better. This was our life now. And for the first time in a long, long time, I was exactly where I was meant to be.